Symbio Horde in the Lower East Side.
You don't want them! You want me!
Let's get it. Let's rock. Oh, come on, man. You really thought you would give me something? Well, I couldn't do my finisher to you, dude. Come on, man. You knew that wasn't really me. Oh. Can't believe that just happened. Scary stories incoming. Spider monkey.
My dream was always to get my own place since I was in high school. I really couldn't wait to move out because I hated my dad growing up, and my mom wasn't much better. We would always buck heads, and my dad would always be drunk on the weekends. And honestly, it was just a mess. As I got older, girls obviously became a factor. It became even more of a problem because there was no way I'd bring any girls back to that house.
Let me restart it from the start.
My dream was always to get my own place ever since I was in high school. I really couldn't wait to move out because I hated my dad growing up. My mom wasn't much better. We would always buck heads. My dad would always be drunk on weekends. And honestly, it was just a mess. As I got older, girls obviously became a factor. It became even more of a problem because there was no way I'd bring any girls back to that household. So because of all of this, I took the first chance I could get, moved out when I was 19 in college. I didn't go away to school. I went to a computer college not far from home. My parents wouldn't pay for me to go away to school. So I was on Zillow, Facebook, and Craigslist every day for a while. When I finally found a rental that looked promising and affordable, I went to see it right away. The layout is pretty important, so I'll describe it now. As I walked in, I was welcomed with the living room slash dining room area, which was one open space. And there was the kitchen adjacent to that, which was separated by a wall. And to get to the single bedroom in the apartment, went down the hallway, which also had two closets. One which I used as a pantry and one as a storage closet. Then the door to the bathroom. At the end of the hall was the bedroom. The bedroom was generously sized. It fit a queen-sized bed easily. It had two more closets. I fit a couple of dressers and a TV in there easily. I was sold immediately, especially because it was budget-friendly. I moved in the next month. Life was fine. Fast forward a few months, maybe. I went out with friends in town, and we ran into some girls we knew. I ended up taking this girl home that I'd known for a while through school, but never hung out in that way. I'll just call her Sammy. We ended up drinking at my place and watching movies.
Say the real
That was
name.
really all we
Give
did.
the city.
She didn't want to take it further than that on our first time hanging out, and I respected that. We ended up in the bedroom finishing the movie that we started in the living room. I think we both just passed out from being drunk somewhere through the movie. Next thing that happened was I woke up to footsteps outside the hallway. It was still the middle of the night. I looked to my side, and I was alone in the bed. I jumped out of bed, looking down the hallway. I saw Sammy in the living room, grabbing her stuff off the couch. She was doing so quietly. She was trying to leave now to avoid the awkwardness in the morning, and I understood that. So I didn't say anything and went back to bed quietly. I heard her eventually walk out the front door. For good measure, I called out, "Sammy?" No response, and I confirmed she was gone. I got comfortable in bed relatively quickly and drifted back off to sleep. It was probably another hour that passed when I woke to something loud. I immediately shot up in my bed. My heart started pounding relatively quickly. I called out, "Sammy?" again. There was no response. I was honestly kind of scared to get up and check, so I picked up my phone and texted Sammy's number, asking if she was still in my house. I realized that was a little weird to do. I was actually scared in that moment. I looked at the door, which was still open, because I was too lazy to get up and shut it after Sammy left. I was definitely still a little drunk from the shots we were taking in the living room, but I felt like I saw something wrapped around the door frame. My breathing only intensified. I still can't believe I had the balls to do this, but I swiped down on my iPhone to reveal the control panel thing, and I pressed the flashlight button. The phone still pointed at the door frame. I realized there were two hands wrapped around the door frame. But as if responding immediately to being revealed, whoever's hands they were tightened and then pulled back out of sight. And the scream I was holding in for those 3 seconds finally came out, mixed with simply screams of dread. I also screamed, get out," over and over. By the time I
Let
finally
me see
got
if I
up,
could go
I looked
underground.
down the hallway. It was empty. I flipped on the light immediately. After a few minutes of calming my breathing and just trying to listen for sounds, I built up the courage to check the hallway closets and bathroom. They were clear. I then moved to the main living area. And trust me, there weren't any places to hide in there.
If I should
I
have
held
just
my phone as
roll
if
with
it were
the
a
flow.
gun as I crept to the nearest light switch and turned it on. It felt instantly better. The living space was lit up, but there was still the kitchen. I crept to the opening that led to the kitchen, flipped that light on as well, finally lighting up the entire apartment. There was no one here. I looked behind the couch, looked under the tables, I even checked the floor-level kitchen cabinets. I realized it was clear. I ran to the front door to lock it. The weird thing, though, is that I never heard the front door close. Yet, there was not a single soul except for me in there. I now tried calling Sammy repeatedly until she picked up. When she did, she sounded tired and confused.
Finding different
I
ways
asked
to
her if she
fight.
was just in my house, and she told me she left a while ago because she couldn't sleep. There was no one here. I looked behind the couch,
I
looked under
rewinded
the
it a
tables,
few
I
minutes.
even checked the
Seconds.
floor kitchen cabinets. When I realized it was clear, I ran to the front door to lock it. The weird thing, though, is that I never heard the front door close. Yet, there was not a single soul except for me in there. I now tried calling Sammy repeatedly until she picked up. When she did, she sounded tired and confused. I asked her if she was just in my house. She told me she left a while ago because she couldn't sleep. I didn't explain. I just told her my bad. I thought I heard a noise. We hung up. I decided to spam call my best friend until he picked up, also sounding tired and confused. I explained everything that just went down, and he said he could tell I was still drunk. His explanation calmed me down, though. He said I was sleep-deprived and still drunk, and I had a mid-wake-up hallucination. It made a little sense, actually, considering I never heard the front door shut. I eventually could laugh it off and apologize for waking him up. I went back to my room, shut and locked the door, and I actually calmed myself down enough to fall asleep.
All right, I'll take it from here.
Oh, you feel me to smoke a ring. No homo.
Oh, you're done now.
Stop borrowing money from friends. $260. The Baymax can get you up to $500 because the account not extra now.
Is it cash? Okay. You're alright, so I'm counting the days, I do it today, I said that no late fees, no future. And I can pay back at one date.
Turn that advertisement off.
Next morning, I did another search around the apartment. It was without a doubt clear. So I went on with my day. But at some point, I thought back to that supposed hallucination. Those hands wrapped around the door frame the night before. I walked to my room and examined the door frame. I think my heart stopped for a moment. I saw obvious fingerprints left in the exact positions the hands I saw on the door frame had been. I felt dizzy, coming to the realization that it wasn't a hallucination. I took this picture of it, which I still have in my iCloud years later. I resorted to calling my dad for advice. He more or less called me on the phone to not lock the door. And as long as nothing was stolen and no one was there anymore, taking out a valuable learning lesson. Honestly, nothing my dad said on that phone call was a complete. That's what sucks. Who the hell came into my apartment that day? I don't know why we chose to do the literal stupidest thing we could have possibly done. After my year-long lease was up, I moved on and upgraded apartments. Never looked back.
Kill the spider first. We can wait.
My parents' house never really felt like a parent's house. Not in a normal way. My dad traveled for work thanks to me, and my mom was always out with friends or staying over at my aunt's house, or doing something else where she come home late or not enough. I know that sounds kind of messed up, but it was just the reality. It wasn't like they abandoned me or anything. It was more like they were always busy and always somewhere else. So from the time I was like 16 and up, basically what they loved. I ate dinner alone most nights, I watched TV alone, I'd be the only person in the house for an entire weekend sometimes. I'm an only child. I think that's because my parents realized after having me how much they valued their own freedom. So in that regard, I did suffer, which is something I feel more now as an adult. When I was younger, I used to love it because it felt like freedom, having such a big place to myself. I could do whatever I wanted without my parents breathing down my neck, and I didn't have to share it with siblings. I could bring friends over and play games late, and talk to girls on the phone without being embarrassed. It felt like having my own home without paying for it. Even when I turned 19 and started going to a nearby college, nothing changed. If anything, I got even more like that. My mom and dad were gone or out more. I was basically just holding it down at home. I knew every noise that house made too. That part matters because it wasn't one of those houses where every creak freaked you out. It was an older but larger house, and it had its usual sounds. I always just said the damn place had a character. So this happened on a night where I knew for a fact I was going to be alone. My dad was out of town for work. My mom had been talking all week about
trying
how
to
she
tap
was staying
you
at
up.
my aunt's because they were having some big family thing the next day, and she didn't want to drive back late. I remember her telling me it's just you today, and I honestly didn't even care. It was normal. I told her that she didn't even have to tell me. I made food, I watched TV, and did the usual. At around 11, I went upstairs to my room and started watching YouTube videos in bed, something I do some nights for hours. My room was at the end of the hallway upstairs. At the top of the stairs, you have a small landing, and then to the right was my parents' room. And further down the hallway was the bathroom, the linen closet, and then my room at the end. I had my door open because my parents told me to keep doors open at night, more as a staying alert and listening for intruders type of thing. But I also liked hearing the house a little, as background noise. It made the whole being alone thing feel less intense. I eventually started getting tired, so I shut my laptop and just laid there scrolling on my
Guess who's trying
phone.
to burn down a building?
So I'm gonna just say that probably an hour passed from the moment I shut my laptop to when my phone rang. It said no caller ID on the screen. That was the first time I'd ever received a no caller ID phone call. I stared at it for a second. To be receiving that late at night was sketchy as hell. I ignored it, but it rang again right after, still saying no caller ID. That's what made me answer. I figured if it was someone important, they would call twice. Plus, it's just a phone call. Worst case scenario, I hang up. So I picked up. And at first, there was no noise. I got nervous that it was one of those scam calls that calls to see if a number is active to add into some call center database. And then I started hearing something faint. It took my brain a second to process
How
what
about
it
we
even
bring that
was.
heat down?
It sounded like a TV playing in the background. And what was weird is that I could also faintly hear my own TV downstairs through the door, because earlier I guess I left it on in the living room. I didn't have it on loud, just like low volume as background noise. So hearing TV up there on the phone instantly made my stomach tight. I said hello a second time. Once again, no response. So, like whoever was on the other end wasn't even trying to speak. I was just there. And I realized something that made me sit up in bed instantly. The TV door I was hearing through the phone wasn't random. It matched my TV downstairs. Right perfectly. It wasn't delayed. It was the exact same audio, the exact same moments. Like it was synced. That's when I got this cold feeling down my spine, because there's only one way that makes sense. That would be when I was on the phone to hear my TV in real time. And then they were inside my house downstairs. I tried to force a normal explanation, like it was a friend standing outside one of my windows downstairs trying to trick me. Or maybe the call was somehow glitching, picking up on my microphone audio. That can happen. The more I listened, the more I realized that didn't make sense.
Fire department can handle
It sounded like
things
someone was calling me while standing somewhere in my living room. I got up, walked to my bedroom door, and listened. Oh yeah, I was 1,000,000% sure now that the audio on the phone was syncing to the TV. In hindsight, this was dumb, and I screamed out, "Who's down there?" Because in the back of my mind, I thought for sure I knew it was a friend or family member calling something. And then the line went dead. I hung up. At this point, my mouth went completely dry. I couldn't even call the number back because there wasn't enough in this call. I walked out into the hallway towards the stairs, and I looked down. I still heard the TV on in the living room. And then, creak. It sounded like the wood floor cracking from the pressure of a person, but if that didn't confirm things, then I heard someone clearing their throat downstairs. That's when everything instantly became 10 times more real. I could no longer lean on the glitching phone theory, even though deep down I already knew that was BS anyway. I went to my room, quietly closed and locked the door. If my dad was testing me, seeing how I'd react in a home intrusion situation, or leaving my Uncle T. So I called my dad. He didn't pick up. They had all been asleep. It was like 11:30. So I called again and again, with no luck. Tried my luck with Uncle T. He picked up on the second ring. I tell he was in bed. He asked why I was calling. I prefaced the phone call, telling him this might sound crazy, and dropped the bomb, asked if he was downstairs. I remember vividly his exact response and tone as he said, "Steve, what the hell are you talking
Need a dance partner?
about?" I elaborated. He told me that's definitely something my brother could do. AKA my dad. While we were on the phone, my phone started vibrating. I heard a scream. There was that no caller ID on the screen again.
Bitch. I got you.
Ever dreamed of leading life with a ranch? Meet the ranch manager, the heart of every working ranch. They oversee.
I begged my Uncle T to stay on the line real quick. I was putting him on hold as I picked up. He said okay. So I picked up the other call. I said hello, and with the same silence. This time, I didn't hear the TV sounds on the other end. I heard that. It seemed they had the phone on speaker because I could hear their footsteps. Footsteps were matching with footsteps I started hearing outside of my bedroom. I prayed with all my heart this was my dad messing
Don't
with
worry,
me.
I've still got plenty
Then,
of time
my
to
doorknob jiggled. Whoever was on the other side tried pushing the door. Thank God it was an old, heavy door with an old, heavy lock. The sound still synced with what I was hearing on the phone. Whoever was on the other side of the door knocked. I had the sudden thought to merge the two calls. But when I did, I yelled into the phone to my Uncle T, saying, "It's not my dad, get here now." I also yelled that whoever was in the house was also on the phone with us. My uncle seemed to wake up from this. He started yelling into the phone things like, "I'm coming, sucker." But no caller ID caller hung up the phone, and I heard footsteps move away from the door. This all but confirmed it was in fact not my dad. My uncle told me to stay in the bedroom. He was on his way. I wasn't a little kid. I wasn't some big brolic man either. I was some skinny 19-year-old. My uncle knew I was in danger. He started heading over to the house. We lived in the same town at the time. But that 7 minutes he took to get to the house was the longest 5 years I'd ever experienced. I heard the familiar voice of my uncle screaming downstairs finally, so I rushed out of the room and confirmed it was
I rewinded it.
my dad.
Couple
My
seconds.
uncle told me to stay in the bedroom.
Right
He was
quick.
on his way. I wasn't a little kid. I wasn't some big brolic man either. I was some skinny 19-year-old. My uncle knew I was in danger. He started heading over to the house. We lived in the same town at the time. That 7 minutes he took to get to the house was the longest 5 years I'd ever experienced. I heard the familiar voice of my uncle screaming downstairs finally, so I rushed out of the room and downstairs. Having him there made everything feel better. We called the cops together while searching around the house for stolen items. The TV in the living room was still on. Before the cops got to the house, the kitchen
17,
window to be
7.
fully open enough for someone to crawl through. That info was of course relayed to the police. They got there, did what I imagined to be a standard police search of the premises, asking us to lead them around the house, but from behind them. We cleared the whole house. Whoever was in there initially was no longer there. After the cops were done, I asked to see the no-caller ID calls of my recent calls. I showed them. One of the officers told us that even though it says no-caller ID, sometimes they can still request records and trace it from where it came. They said it could take a few days, but they'd get back to us. My uncle stayed over that night, which made me feel safer. We kept every light on like little kids.
Midtown here.
A few days later, one of the officers called me back surprisingly. The number was traced back to someone I actually knew. It's an old acquaintance from high school. Not a friend or enemy, but someone who had my number and address and such. I hadn't seen him in years. The cops asked if I wanted to come with them while they questioned him. So my uncle and I went, since he was there on the scene with me originally. The guy's dad answered the door and saw the police. He instantly called his son down without question. I could see it in his son's face that he was nervous. The officer and I asked him straight up if he made those calls. He immediately said no. And he said his phone had been stolen a few days ago. He claimed he lost it at a party and never got it back. The cop asked why he didn't report it stolen. He just shrugged it off and said he was going to get a new one anyway. The cop told him they'd follow up if needed. And that was basically it. His dad just stood there the whole time watching, but he weirdly didn't say anything. There was no big gotcha moment or arrest or anything. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. A nervous look on his face when he came to the door. Was it a look of guilt, or the natural look anyone would have of being greeted with police on their front doorstep?
Someone's getting
It
beat up
really
over
was
there.
a stolen phone.
Not on my
I mean,
watch.
someone stole his phone specifically to call me, break into my parents' house.
Slip it!
Without a doubt, scarier
Hope you
than
don't mind me
it was him.
interrupting here.
You're beyond dead, Spider-Man!
You guys really
You're landed back.
Thinking and this look on his face when he came to the door. Is it a look of guilt, or a natural look anyone would have of being greeted with police on the front doorstep? It really was a stolen phone. I mean, someone stole this phone specifically to call me, break into my parents' house. That's without a doubt scarier than if it was him.
You're done now, Spider-Man! Cut yourself out!
Live trade the moment.
Please, don't leave me!
$5 a day, vested for 1 year, and you can have $1,900.
Don't worry.
$5 a day,
Get you an ambulance
vested
in
for
no
10
time.
years.
Oh my
It
god.
was again like so many before. The
Thank you.
usual crew was getting ready to meet up at Cody's house to pregame and go out. This was post-college. We were all 23 to 24 at the time. Cody's house was often the spot to pre- and post-game, simply because he had a cool basement where his parents couldn't hear us, but also because his parents were chill. It was just the four of us going out to some local bars tonight. Cody, Randy, Jake, and I. When all four of us were there, we decided on who was calling the Uber. Once we did, we were out of there. Fast forward a few hours at a bunch of dive bars and then a dance bar. Eventually, Cody and I decided to go home. We were tired. Randy and Jake were staying out later. Cody called the Uber back, I think. And he
Almost
was
there.
When on the side like that.
We got to his place. He came downstairs with me to help me set it up. While down there, we played a game of Madden. Honestly, I've always sucked at Madden, so he destroyed me, and I didn't want to play again. I was tired and
And
just
there we
wanted
are.
to sleep the alcohol
Pros will
off
take it from
before I
here.
made the inevitable hangover even worse. Cody went upstairs and shut the door. I was left alone in the darkness. The only thing that kept that basement from being complete and total blackness were the lights from the cable box clock under the TV, the actual stamp outline of the TV itself, and a slight green glow.
If you want that story, watch the next vid.